What's up, Online Empire Academy? I am so excited to be here. We have the incredible guest, Stephen Sashen from Xero Shoes, and I am so excited. This is an absolutely incredible story and such an incredible opportunity for us as the Empire to learn from somebody who has been an expert at building exposure for their brand. So, what's up, man? How are you?
Well, honestly, I'm getting over 2 days worth of being in bed. So pardon me if I sound all sniffly. It's only because I am.
Well, I appreciate you still willing to being willing to come on the show. I really am
Oh, no,
excited
my
about
pleasure.
this.
My pleasure.
Totally. So I want the Empire, for those of you guys who don't know what this brand is, and I want the Empire to know this. I want them to know what you guys are doing, what you're about, and kind of your story, because I think this is the piece that I really want you guys to attach yourself to, is how you guys built your brand. So share your story. I want to know all about it.
All of it. That's a long big one. It used to be, my wife Lana and I would go to parties and people would say, ask me what I did, and I would just excuse myself and let her answer for me because it's a lot of things. I've never had an actual job. I've heard about them. I think they sound interesting. I just don't know that I could do it. It wouldn't end well for anybody. So I've been selling things online since, geez, 1992, actually 1991. And Xero Shoes, that's Xero Shoes, what we're doing now. We started a little over 6 years ago, and it was a total fluke, freak, accident, mistake, something that we completely didn't plan. And so let me give you the short version of that. About 8 years ago, when I was 45, I got back into sprinting after a 30-year break. I don't necessarily recommend that because I spent the first 2 years just getting injured pretty much constantly. But I was still having really fun, having a lot of fun. One day I'm walking, well, one day I'm hobbling across the kitchen, and my wife asked me, completely serious, she's, "Are you having fun doing this?" I said, "More than you can imagine," even though I was getting hurt all the time. So one day, a friend of mine who's a world champion distance runner said, "You should try running barefoot and see if that helps." So I took off my shoes, went for a run with a bunch of other barefoot people, and there are a couple things that happened. The first was, now I'm a sprinter. I run the 100 meters. That's like as far as I go. My training partners joke that I have a phobia of the other side of the track. And I said, that's ridiculous. That can be created something that doesn't exist. I have no evidence for the other side of the track. So I went out running barefoot, and I was so fascinated by the experience, by how it felt, by what happened if I changed my gait, if I tried to run faster or slower, move my legs faster without running faster, move my legs slower without running faster. Just everything about it was really, really interesting. And at the end of the race, or the end of the run, someone had a GPS watch on, and I said, "How far did we just go?" And she said, "That was about 4 miles." I went, "I'm sorry, what?" I mean, I had never run that far in my life, and I was just because I was just so fascinated by the experience. Well, there was one other part. I ended up with a giant blister on the ball of my left foot, and my left leg was the one that was getting injured all the time. This was not lost on me. So I found that really interesting. And the next week, I went out for barefoot run number two, still with this gaping hole on the ball of my left foot. And I thought, okay, if I can find a way to run that doesn't hurt, then that probably means that I'm no longer doing the thing that caused the problem to begin with. So it was an experiment. I figured I'd give myself 10 minutes, and if I couldn't figure it out in 10 minutes, screw it, I'll go home, try again another time. At about the 9 minute and 30-second mark, when I was literally looking for where I was going to pull off and just hobble my way back to my car, something changed. And instantly, literally within one step, I was running faster, easier, lighter, more effortlessly, and with more fun than I literally ever had in my life.
Wow.
Now, I know what I did. For those of you who are into running, I stopped overstriding. I stopped reaching out to grab the ground with my foot and pull the ground behind me. I just started landing with my feet underneath me, and rather than pushing and pulling, I was just lifting my feet off the ground and putting them back on the ground, and kind of it just became more efficient. So I was sold. I love this idea of running barefoot or just being barefoot. It really was, it feels good. And that's not an accident. There's more nerve endings on the bottom of your feet than anywhere but your fingertips and your lips. And you're supposed to feel things and know when things feel good. Your brain responds to that. And I quickly changed all my form problems that were causing my injuries. I'm now a Masters All-American sprinter, which means I'm one of the fastest guys over the age of 50. Or technically, you're talking to someone who arguably could be the fastest Jew in the world. So
I
anyway,
love it.
yeah, be that as it may. Um, so I'd heard about the Tarahumara Indians. I knew about these guys. They're from Mexico. They were brought up to Colorado to run the highest ultra marathon in the world, the Leadville 100, and they ended up doing it either barefoot or in sandals that were made out of tire, scraps of tire with leather strapped to their feet, which is what they usually wear. And I started looking around online, and I started making. I got some rubber from a outsole manufacturer, got some laces from Home Depot, and started making sandals for myself and for other barefoot runners in town. We just sit on the street corner just doing this, and people would walk by going, "Hey, it's those things that those guys wear." So that was really fun. And then one day, here's where the accident came in. Well, all of this has been an accident so far. But one day, a guy who was the local barefoot running coach says to me, "You should treat this little hobby of yours like a business and put up a website because I have a book coming out about barefoot running. And if you had a website, I would put you in the book." So I rush home and I pitch this idea to my wife, who tells me I'm a complete idiot and that it won't work. It won't make any money. It's a waste of time. It's a distraction from the business that we had, which was an SEO business that we had been building. And just don't do it. And I assured her that she was correct and that I wouldn't do it. It goes to bed around 9, and by 10 I had a website. So the next day, she's kind of grumbling that I had done this. And I said, look, it's an SEO experiment. The people who are ranking for the keywords that I care about, they're obviously there by accident. There's nothing that I could see where anyone was deliberately trying to rank. It was all just sort of random stuff. I said, we'll do this as an SEO experiment and see what happens. It'll be a good case study. Within 3 months, it was our full-time job. It just took off because I owned it. I mean, there was a period of time in early 2010 where for any keyword I care about, I had 45 of the top 50 search positions minimum.
Oh my goodness.
It was nuts. And it stayed that way for a while till competition came in and some Google changes happened about a year later. And then it was also coincidental with the rather meteoric and surprising rise of interest in the book Born to Run by Chris McDougall that was all about the Tarahumara Indians and barefoot running and running shoes and how they don't do anything for you and all these other things. So it really was just I hate using the phrase perfect storm, but it was. I mean, it was just all these things that came together just right and took off. And then maybe 9 months in, we ended up meeting these guys who formerly met at Reebok when they started at Reebok 40 years ago when it was smaller than we are. In fact, less than half the size of what we are now. And they helped build it to 1.2 billion. And we met them socially, and they came over and worked with us on our business plan and our product development, and just because they liked what we were doing and we got along really well. So it was the whole thing was a fluke. And the reason that I love the fact that it was a fluke is that everyone has this idea that you can reliably find some technique or some step-by-step plan that leads to something successful. And really, more often than not, the luck factor, the chance and unpredictability factor is way higher than the "hey, we planned it" factor.
Yeah.
That's the story in a nutshell.
That's so good. There's so many nuggets in there that I want to dig into. The first one, and kind of selfishly, is you said something about shoes that, and even in reading what you guys have written, like shoes actually can end up damaging your joints and stuff. Can you kind of expand on that? I mean, it's super interesting and something I want to get into before we get into kind of your exposure and how you manage that.
Yeah. So here's the deal. In a nutshell, shoes suck. Bottom line. Sandals too. And there are a number of things. So look at the shape of your foot. I mean, just like look down at your foot. It's basically triangular. Except now go look at your shoes and you'll see that it's basically diamond shaped. So most shoes have these narrow pointed toe boxes that restrict what your foot naturally wants to do, which is have your toes spread out. Most of them have what's called toe springs. So especially running shoes, they rise up at the front, which actually puts your toes, stretches out the plantar fascia, the bottom of your foot, essentially, unnecessarily and unnaturally. The thick cushioning that you have on the bottom of most, again, I'll talk mostly about running shoes, it breaks down, actually sandals too, flip-flops too. The thick cushioning breaks down and can lead you to, falling off one side or the other and put your ankle all out of whack. Plus, ironically or paradoxically, cushioning actually increases the forces that go through your joints, long
Huh.
story about that. Um, a lot of the outsoles are stiff, so they eliminate both the sensory feedback from the ground that your feet are wired to receive, and your brain is wired to get from your feet. That's what's required for balance. And also, it just impedes the natural flexion of the entire foot, especially the big toe, which is really important for proper push off from the ground and the healthy function and development of the arch. So put all that together and you have something that can really easily lead to injuries and problems from plantar fasciitis, joint pain, balance problems in the elderly, pretty much you name it. Now, here's the kicker. Think of it this way. In the 45 years since the invention of the padded motion control running shoe, not one running shoe company has ever demonstrated that their product is, that their product reduces injury or improves performance or simply is better than other products out there.
Hmm.
Now, the running shoe industry is a $6 billion a year industry. There's a lot of financial incentive to do this. Why haven't they done it? And the answer is pretty simple. They can't. Um,
Huh.
if you look at running shoes prior to like 72, when Nike came out with big, thick padded things, they were all about as minimalist as what we do. Thin piece of rubber, thin piece of leather on the bottom, really thin upper, really lightweight, really flexible. And then it all changed. And I've talked to a guy who talked to the doctor who helped Nike come up with these ideas. And that doctor recanted and said, all those ideas I came up with, I pulled them out of my butt. I made them up. They weren't true.
Wow.
Now it's become common wisdom that you're supposed to have this. Orthotics, here's an interesting one. So motion control and orthotics. There is no evidence that they work reliably. They work seemingly for 10% of the population. Nobody knows in advance which 10%. There's no evidence that a $500 custom made orthotic is better than a Dr. Scholl's insole that you get at Walmart. And this is $1 billion industry. So what we're looking at now in whatever year this is, 2016, is the end result of over 45 years of advertising, marketing, and propaganda. And it's gone on so long that everyone thinks that it's true because they can't remember when it wasn't.
Huh.
Not that I find this, I find it intellectually fascinating. And look, here's the way I say it. While running shoes in particular don't kill anybody, they often seem to cause the very problems for which they're sold as cures. And I like to say that running shoes are the new cigarettes.
Huh.
I literally do believe, for a number of reasons, that there is a smoking gun that, pun intended, that running shoe companies do have research showing that their products are not only some often not helpful, but often harmful. And if people really knew the truth about these products and how they've been sold a bill of goods, I like to fantasize that there would be rioting in the streets. But given how apathetic people have gotten lately, I imagine there would just be a few people like me grumbling, in the background.
That's so interesting. I think that, for the most of society, you're totally right. I mean, I'm from the generation that never knew a life without running shoes. So, it's for me, the Nike Air Maxes are the way to go. That's just my thought process. It's like,
Right.
and then they came out with the free run, and it's like, oh, they're so lightweight, and so, I've never gotten to barefoot running because frankly, it scares me. But it's just, for me, I'm learning so much about just the differences in preferences, and now hearing, just reading through your guys' studies and stuff, I think it is really interesting just what you're talking about, and that it is $1 billion market. What I think is super interesting is that you guys saw the market and have now figured out a way to reach a much broader audience. I mean, for me personally, like, I would have never thought of using y'all's shoes, but now it's something that has totally changed my perspective. And now looking at it, I'm like, oh, there's actual health benefits to it. And
Well, you just hit on something, a couple things that are really interesting. So the conversation is controlled by the guys with the most money and the most reach and the most longevity. Let's say, I mean, there are a number of things. Suffice it to say, Nike puts out a press release and it gets reprinted as if it's news. Okay. So every 4 years, they spend millions of dollars to put all of their gear on Olympic athletes. And then somehow it's, quote, news that these Olympic athletes are all wearing Nike products. Like, wait, run that by me again. So, And the whole conversation about barefoot, it started in 2009, kind of grew in 2010. And in the early days of it, all of the running shoe stores and all of the running shoe companies were just screaming that it was complete bullshit.
Hmm.
It was all made up. It was all fiction. Doesn't work. Can't, like, just stay away. You're going to die. You're going to get Ebola and step on hypodermic needles and somehow, end up with Alzheimer's from taking off your shoes. So, I mean, it was just a massive propaganda war. It was hysterical. And my favorite one is things like they'll pull out some doctor who has never taken off his shoes in his life. I mean, I say that because I've been on panels where I'm with all these doctors and they say, "Oh, barefoot running is going to kill you." And I go, "How many people on this panel have ever taken off their shoes and run barefoot for at least a mile on a paved road?" And I'm the only one. It's like, how do you guys know what you're talking about? You've never even tried it. You have no idea. How many of you have analyzed video of runners running barefoot on pavement? I'm the only one. So it's like the doctors will say things like, "I love barefoot running. It's putting my kids through college with all the new patients I'm seeing." I go, all right. Look, first of all, when a whole bunch of people try something, you're going to see more patients because that's just the pie getting bigger. But you're never going to hear from the people who had no problem, like me, who very quickly found that it cured their injuries and developed arches in my previously lifelong flat feet. You won't see us. Secondly, did you check and see if these people were actually running barefoot? Because around 2010 is when all the shoe companies went, "We got to take advantage of this," and started making quote unquote minimalist shoes. And they claimed that it gave you the same benefits as being barefoot, which was complete. I think the technical word is bullshit again. Fiction. None of us barefoot people ever said that, but they were trying to capture some piece of this. I said, so were they running barefoot or were they in quote barefoot shoes? And 99% of the time they were in the barefoot shoes because, like you said, people are afraid to do it, even though this is what everyone used to do. People have forgotten that. Okay, so that was the second thing or third thing. I don't know. The next thing I said, have you analyzed their form? Did you look to see how they were running? Because those of us who do this, we don't. It's not about being barefoot. It's about the form that you adopt when you're barefoot. Because if you run the same way that you do in shoes, without shoes, it hurts. And so your body and your brain quickly go, well, all right, we got to stop that. And when you figure out how to run barefoot in a way that's fun, not only not painful, but fun, it's a change in your gait. And interestingly, research has shown that people who run barefoot do change their gait. People who run in most minimalist shoes do not, because they're not getting enough feedback from the ground and their body to inspire those changes, aka pain, frankly. So I said, have you ever analyzed their running? And the answer is, of course, never. And I said, do you even know what good running form is? And the answer is usually no. And then I go, and look, let's just do the simple thing. You guys made this same joke 40 years ago about running shoes. So you can't have it both ways. You can't claim that running shoes are, I'm putting my kids through college, and then 40 years later go barefoot, hey, it's putting my kids through college. It's, you can't just change the story and move the goalposts. So I don't even have to say anything pro barefoot, frankly, in those conversations. I just point out that the arguments are fiction. The arguments are straw man arguments. The arguments are non sequiturs. It's like every cognitive problem and rhetorical glitch there is comes into those arguments. So all that said, the problem for us is, again, they control the conversation. When Nike puts out a press release saying barefoot is bullshit, everyone thinks that barefoot is bullshit. When Vibram, the guys who make the five-toe shoes, get sued in a class action suit that some people think may have been sponsored by a shoe company, then everyone goes, oh, see, barefoot is nonsense because they got sued. It's like, well, wait, first of all, they got sued. That doesn't mean anything. That just means someone is looking for a way to make money. And they settled the case for $3.75 million, which means, compared to like Reebok when they got sued for making claims about their toning shoes, which only toned your legs and butt because they weighed like 5 pounds each. When they got sued for that, it was, the companies that have gotten sued for the same kinds of things have paid hundreds of $millions total in lawsuits. $3.75 million basically means the plaintiff realized, crap, we don't have a case. Let's get out of here. Otherwise, they wouldn't have agreed to $3.75 million on a product that is sold as well as the five figures. So we're up against a propaganda machine. How do you deal with that? And the answer that we found is twofold. One, don't. There's no way I can argue against against people's intrinsic beliefs when they're really, how do I want to put it? When there's financial incentive for them to hold on to it. It's easier for them to just buy from Nike than to launch a new brand, for example. So one thing we're doing is making an end run around it. We just don't even try and talk about it so much because there's more to our product than the whole idea of barefoot running. They're comfortable, they're versatile, they're lightweight, they feel good. You can use these for everything from taking a walk to going to yoga or CrossFit, or they're perfect for travel. They're great for hiking. They you can hang it on the beach. They look cool. So we're just selling people on the benefits beyond trying to talk them into the barefoot idea. And then we give them the whole barefoot backstory so they understand why they're having this great experience that they're having. Now, for the true believers, piece of cake. We just get in front of them when they're looking for things about barefoot. That's easy. But in the big picture, we just have to, I don't want to say that we pivot because I hate that term, but it's also that it's not true. What we've done is we've looked underneath to see why our customers like what we do, what
Yeah.
they're really responding to, and we're selling that. We know people want comfortable, attractive footwear that feels good. We know people have foot pain and ankle pain and knee pain. We can't sell medical benefits, but we know that when people wear these shoes, they have these great experiences. So we try to bypass the argument entirely, and then they have their own experience. They go, oh my God, this is just like being barefoot, only I've got protection and some comfort and some style. They sell themselves on the story. So that's what we've had to do. And now that said, we really do have this mission about footwear that is natural, that has natural fit the way your foot is shaped, that has natural flex the way your foot is supposed to move, that gives you natural feel so you get feedback from the ground. All of those are really important. We didn't evolve to put these things in a cast. You would never go to a doctor. In fact, you would sue any doctor about if you walked in with any other complaint other than your feet, if he suggested, why don't you just immobilize them for the rest of your life? You'd laugh at the guy or punch the guy, but that's what we're currently living with. So we have this very strong mission to do something about that.
Yeah.
And even in that, we have to find you've got to find the leverage point where you can actually make a difference rather than the wall that you're going to run into and beat your head against.
That's so cool. I think it's super interesting. Just I love your passion. First off, I think that truly is inspirational to me, and just to hear your passion and where you guys have come from, and how excited you are about what you're doing. I think that's something I'm.
Well, I got to tell you,
on.
it's really easy to be excited about the truth in the face of people lying.
Yeah,
Honestly, I mean,
makes sense.
there's nothing more enjoyable than having the truth on your side.
It's good. Now, my question is: you're in Boulder, Colorado. That's cold. What do you do during the winters?
Well, yeah, it was 25 degrees at work today. I haven't put shoes
Oh,
on yet. My first winter, I was just kind of curious, like how long could I go before I felt the urge to put on shoes, and then it
yeah.
was March, and now it's been over 8 years. I just been wearing my sandals during the winter, and the only thing that changes, excuse me. In fact, if you go to xeroshoes.com/cold, you'll see some things I've written about this. You do adapt. I mean, there are cultures and people who make it through winters with bare feet, and they're way more cold adapted than I am. But you make certain concessions. You don't go out for an hour-long walk. You go out for 10-minute loops or whatever you need to do. So you change the way you behave in order to do the thing that you want to do. You don't try to force reality, or you don't try to force your ideas upon reality. And you adapt. It's funny. I go out now when it's really, really cold. My hands are freezing. My feet feel fine.
Really?
Yeah, it's really wild, actually.
Huh. Because that was my one thing is I live in Northern California, so it doesn't get cold compared to that. But where my wife's from, she's from Michigan, and you got to go shovel off your driveway every morning. So just thinking about that, I'm like, can you shovel snow in
Yeah.
in your shoes?
Well,
Like,
two things. I'm not suggesting that everyone goes barefoot in the winter. I'm just saying that the limitations that we imagine are usually only imagined limitations. And so if you go to xeroshoes.com/cold, you'll actually see a video of me shoveling a foot of snow in the winter.
that's awesome. Very fun. Okay, so for you guys who may be looking at Steven and thinking, I've seen him somewhere, they were on Shark Tank, and this was super exciting for me because I started looking at their stuff, and I had that same moment of, I've seen these guys before. Like, I'm pretty sure I've seen these guys before, and then after researching a little more, they were on Shark Tank and actually had their own piece. So I want to kind of dig into that. Obviously,
Sure.
you had the cameo in the book, but you guys have done a fantastic job, and you talked a little bit about just your keywords, but you've done a fantastic job at exposure. Tell us, how did you build that exposure? How did you grow your company to the point where obviously you guys got on Shark Tank, but now are in the forefront and have all these keywords? Explain some of that.
Well, I mean, we are an emerging aspirational lifestyle brand. That's our goal. In fact, we're expanding beyond the keyword set that originally started this. We have new products that are coming out that are much more that are still, again, still true to our what we believe about natural movement and ground feel, but give people a bit more protection and a bit more comfort, still in something really ultra lightweight, really thin, and really flexible. We're committed to that. And so we realize now we're competing in a bigger space against products like Chaco or Teva or Keen or arguably Birkenstock even. And so that expands the keyword set and the things that we're doing. But the answer to your question is, early on, the first thing that I did is I took for the first 3.5 years of our business, we were selling a do-it-yourself sandal making kit. That's what we showed on Shark Tank. That's all we had then. We were developing ready-to-wear product at the time, but we didn't have it at the time. And I wrote up all the instructions for how to do it, and I gave it away online. I made videos showing people how to go out and do it on their own. And I mean, I literally gave away our entire business model. Here it is. You don't need me. Knock yourself out. And those videos have gotten a couple million views.
Wow.
And I bump into people very regularly who say things like, I made all these shoes because of your videos. I mean, I've never bought your stuff yet. I just wanted to let you know. And they feel really embarrassed about it, which I'm fine by. The important thing for me was getting people out there and doing stuff.
Yeah.
And building the list and building. I mean, I didn't, how do I want to say this? I didn't do it with the deliberate, oh wait, this is really weird. I didn't do it just because I was trying to build trust and authority and all those things. I knew those things would happen. I did it because it was the right thing to do. And those things are just part of doing the right thing. So, and then we've done comedic videos as well. I did a video, Shit Barefoot Runners Say, that kind of mocks barefoot runners. And then the follow-up, Shit Runners Say to Barefoot Runners, that mocks the people who mock barefoot runners. I made that video, actually, when the whole sort of shit people say meme came out, Lena says to me, you should do one of those. And I can't think of what I would say. Then that night I woke up in the middle of the night with one of the jokes and woke up and wrote it all down and went out and shot it in an hour or so. And she said, what do you think is going to happen? I said, I don't know. If we get like 2,000 views, that'll be nice. And on the first day we had 1,000. On the second day we had 5,000. On the third day we had 20,000. On the next day we had 100,000. So we got picked up by Boing Boing. So it took off. So the thing that I did and continue to do and want to do more of, frankly, the problem with running a business is as it gets bigger, the amount of time you have to do certain things diminishes. And so I'm trying to do more, is just making, I hate saying developing content, but I'll say it, developing content that is educational or entertainment or both, that helps people go out and do things on their own. They don't need me. That makes people like what we're doing just for the fun of it, or that does make people want to participate in what we're doing because they believe in the product or the mission or the idea or some variation of the theme. So it's just find where the conversations are already happening and then get in on the conversation, not to promote yourself, but to be part of the conversation. I mean, you can do it. There are, again, some people who have a formula. It's like do 4 things that are just being part of the conversation and 1 thing is promotional. And I personally err on the side of promoting probably less than I should, because for me, this is just one of my favorite conversations and I can't help but wanting to talk about it. And that's been a big part of it. And then there are the specific logistical things of paying attention to keywords or paying attention to how social platforms interlink, or paying attention to, what are the things that I really kind of pay attention to? Understanding SEO in certain ways, like knowing what you can do with RSS, knowing how you can build domain authority, knowing, all of the various components of that, knowing the value of video, experimenting with paid search. I mean, here's a weird one for us. We really can't do much paid search because the big companies are paying huge amounts of money per click, and we can't afford to compete in that. In fact, the way I say it is, you know you're in trouble when you're doing niche marketing and annoying internet marketers who are selling courses on niche marketing are using your niche as an example of one to go after to make money. Because what that means is that there's an arbitrage play in place, that you can buy traffic at one price and sell it for a higher price. And when that's happening, that means there's too much competition. And that's the situation we're in. So again, we have to make an end run around reality to do what we want. And so those are some of the weird, tricky things we're doing. So we are doing some paid search, but it's challenging when oh gosh, Merrill, for example, is willing to pay $2.50 for a click on barefoot running shoes. Like, really?
It's a lot of money at the end of the day.
A lot of money at the end of the day. So it makes it hard. The fantasy is that you can find some paid channel and just scale it, just turn up the dial, and as much as you spend, you make that plus something back. And we've had to really, really uh, get good at understanding our stats so that we could frankly pull the plug fast without losing too much money. It's kind of I'll give you this one. Every time someone calls me and asks me for money, which happens every day, multiple times for some marketing initiative, I always just ask them these two questions, and I swear I say this. I go, okay, I just want to know how quickly and cheaply can I find out if you have your head up your ass? And secondly, what are you going to do about it if you do? Because I have no interest in sending you a check for a bunch of money and having you shrug your shoulders and go, wow, I don't know why that didn't work. It usually does. And if they can't answer both of those questions, I don't hire them.
Huh. I like it. That's really good. I think you touched on something earlier that I wish that our community would touch and kind of grab a hold of, and even our own teams, is if you have a private label product. I mean, you're working with these shoes,
Yeah.
and so many of our audience does have a private label product.
Yeah.
The thing we tend to forget is that there's a duty as the sole proprietor of that product, that I now need to market that. And most of us, just throw it on Amazon and run ads to it, run ads on Facebook, do all that, which is great. I'm not knocking that.
Work.
Totally, but there's not what I think you did and really have championed, and I so appreciate this, is you took that to the next level and said, I'm not just going to do this, I'm also going to make videos and tutorials. I mean, it was so interesting after going through your YouTube page, and we'll link the YouTube page in this post, but watching your videos, it didn't feel pitchy. You had your thing at the end where you're like, you have your slogan at the end, but it didn't. I felt like, oh, I'm gonna go Google what their website is. I'm gonna go Google it. It wasn't that it was like this big thing, and I felt offended by all these links and like this pitch. It was just, hey, I'm gonna show how to use this to the best of the ability, and I'm gonna talk about running. I'm gonna talk about my product. For those of you who do have a private label product, this is a perfect example to learn from, of taking a product, private labeling it, and then showing your community, showing the people around you, whether it's family or your YouTube page, show them why they need to have that product. And I promise that things are going to start, those gears are going to start turning to where you can. I mean, I love what you just said, of people are going to approach you about, hey, I want to do X, Y, and Z to see if we can promote this.
Yeah.
And then, you're going to be able to say, hey, where's your money? Put your money where your mouth is. How are you going to better?
Well, it's interesting you say that. And again, I'm not suggesting this is the only way you can put up a video sales letter that's all pitch, pitch, pitch. It's, that has all the classic formulaic things of it's not your fault and scarcity and limited this and blah, blah, blah. You can do all that. And sometimes it's relevant. Part of it is that our particular product is less of a problem solution product or problem solution product. This is there are some people who are searching for us because they do have a problem for which they think this is a solution, but we're not in a business where people have, I don't know, monkeys growing out of their butt or whatever it is, they have the anti-monkey growing out of your butt cream. So, which if that doesn't exist, man, it totally should. So,
I think it's your next product. There you go.
I've got a funny story about that. Not monkeys in your butt, but next product. But we're not a problem solution focused company. Even though, again, we do believe that there are problems that get solved with what we're doing. We, for a list of reasons, don't want to go down that road. It is fraught with peril with the FTC, frankly, and we don't want to do that. I mean, again, the room got sued because someone claimed that they had made medical claims that they couldn't back up, and or scientific claims, same, that they couldn't back up, and it's arguably true and arguably not so simple, which is why, again, tied into a settlement. So um, for us, it's important just to be part of the conversation, because if someone thinks you're always pitching them, it's hard. It's you know that guy who's at a party who is always on and he's always trying to be funny even when he's not. You don't want to be that guy, and you don't want to be the marketing version of that guy. You want to be someone that someone's willing to talk to about whatever you're doing,
Yeah.
and be willing to listen, not be waiting for the pitch. The number of times where I talk to people and I go, look, you'll have to pardon me, but I don't have my Xero Shoes CEO hat on right now. I have my let's just chat hat on. And I know some people can't separate those, but I do all the time. Frankly, I mostly don't have my Xero Shoes CEO hat on, and that makes it so that I can have conversations with people at very high levels, and they don't find me clingy and narcissistic and all those things that annoy them. I mean, I'm part of the conversation with them, not part of just someone else trying to get something from them. And then I'll say to them, look, that I'd like you to do something. And here's the conversation. Let's just have the chat independent of all that. And then we'll have the chat about that. And if it works, it works. And if it doesn't, it doesn't. Because I'm not, there's that old line in sales. You can't say the wrong thing to the right person and the right thing to the wrong person. You know, I don't try to sell people all the time if for no other reason than it's just too much effort.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'd love for those of you who are watching, those of you who are listening, you can go to the YouTube page. But do you have any samples or anything that you can just show via the chat?
Product samples?
Yeah.
Just so happens, and this is literally coincidental. I'm bringing these to a magazine later today, so they can take pictures of them. So one of our shoes, think Chaco Teva Keen again. Sport sandals. They're usually like an inch and a half thick, and they weigh a pound and a half, and they're stiff as a brick. And this is our Amuri Z-Trek sandal, and so you can see it from different angles.
That's awesome.
So it's 5.5 millimeters thick. This one weighs about 6.5 ounces. We have a new product coming out in a little while that weighs even less. It's ridiculously flexible. You can roll it up and fit it in your pocket. It fits in your pocket. It obviously packs well. People see me roll it up and they go, "Hey, that's great for travel." I go, "Well, it actually packs flat this way," but yes. And it's got a really durable outsole, really, really grippy. People use this for fly fishing, for climbing mountains, for taking a walk. It's ridiculously comfortable, slides on and off. It's only $60 compared to some other similar products that are 100, 120 and up. And true to our tire sandal heritage, our outsoles have a 5,000-mile warranty. And where that came from, people would say, "Hey, how long do these things last?" And we'd say, "I don't know. No one's ever worn out a pair." And then we thought about the whole tire sandal heritage and went, "Okay, 5,000-mile warranty." So this is another thing we do compared to other shoes. When we had our rubber developed, we made this rubber. It's called Feel True rubber. And when we had it developed, we wanted something that lasted a long time and had the performance characteristics that we wanted, because I find planned obsolescence both insulting and annoying. And so when we talked to the factory about making this, they said, "That's not the way most outsoles are made." And we went, "Yeah, I know." So it's certainly, we could make more money if we had something that wore out in 300 miles, but I just find that so annoying that we'd rather have something. And we have people who will email us on a daily basis saying, "Here's a picture of the shoes that I bought from you 5 years ago.
Oh my
It cost me
goodness.
$30. I'm still wearing them." And I love that, because what happens is then rather than, then the next thing they do, they know that they're getting something that's a good value.
Yeah.
So I don't have to do fake pricing things. I don't have to say, "Hey, the real price of this should be $1 million, but it's only whatever." They know the value of it. So they know that if they're going to spend another $50, $60, $100 with me, they're going to get something that lasts a long time. And that's actually better than playing pricing games.
I love that, and I think it's just cool. Like my dad always wore I think like the Chacos yeah, I think that's what. But he'd wear the sandals, and I thought they were cool, but like I just never bought a pair. I mean, I could never justify the cost as well. But
And
for me, I always
Well, you also said my favorite thing. That one of the ways that we talk about these, we go, these are not your father's sandals.
I love it. No, I think it's really cool though, because for me, I'm used to, I grew up in Southern California where rainbows are made. So, for me, I'd go buy a new pair of rainbows every 3 years, and I thought they were the greatest thing ever. But to hear that you guys give a $5,000 or a 5,000 mile warranty, I think that's amazing. Like I wish mine were warranted that long, but I think that that's really cool, just that you guys made it intentionally with really strong materials. I think that's awesome.
The fundamental idea that we have underneath our business, which is undeniably not the way to make the most money, is that Lena and I won't do anything that wouldn't make us happy if we were our own customers. So our pricing, we could definitely have higher pricing, but these are numbers that we're comfortable with as consumers. Our customer service, hugely important to us. Many of our competitors, if you call them or email them, you'll get a voicemail and you'll never hear back from them, or it'll take weeks till they hear back. We're hiring additional customer service people because, frankly, when everyone takes the weekend off, I answer emails most of the time because I hate when people have to wait to get an answer, especially if the answer involves them then wanting to buy something from me. I want to give them the information they need quickly so they can have that experience of getting through the sales process. So that's one of my next fantasies, is that we can kind of juggle it with our customer service team so that everything's being answered throughout the weekend as well, but no one feels like they're in slave labor.
I love it. Well, it's been an absolute joy to have you on. I think it's so interesting. My mind is open to the world of no shoes. So I appreciate you being on. I appreciate all the time you've taken to talk with us. Empire, if you guys want to know more about them, go to the onlineempireacademy.com/Xero Shoes. Now that is Xero Shoes. And you can find more about them there. Where can they find you on YouTube? I really think that your YouTube channel is awesome.
Thanks.
What is the channel?
Not surprisingly, we're Xero Shoes everywhere. So youtube.com/Xero Shoes, which redirects to youtube.com/user/Xero Shoes, and xeroshoes.com, and facebook.com/Xero Shoes, and @Xero Shoes on Twitter, and instagram.com/Xero Shoes, and everywhere you can think of /Xero Shoes.
Perfect. Well, I'm really excited. Some of my takeaways from this are obviously like just making sure that you know your brand, and that you're really developing that and growing that brand as a whole, making videos about it, or just sharing it and being the spokesman of it. I really appreciate just your passion.
I want to highlight that really quickly, and because I know
please.
Just to highlight it really quickly, a brand is bigger than the product that you're selling, and if you can build a brand, you have a real asset. If you're just selling a product, you've got a temporary business.
Man, that's so good. That's so good. Well, Empire, we're going to end on that. Again, Stephen, thank you so much for being on. I've appreciated it. And yeah, so if you guys want to know more about Stephen, obviously the Online Empire Academy /Xero Shoes, Xero Shoes. .com or you can go onto YouTube and find us there, iTunes, Stitcher Radio, all the above. We're so excited that you guys came to listen to us, and until next time, Empire, have a fantastic day.